Okay, so on to the supplies. The supplies you'll need for participating in this section of the course are a clean chopping board, towel, a knife, and 80 proof brandy. I think brandy makes better tasting tinctures than vodka, especially for dogs. You'll also need 2 8-ounce half-pint glass mason jars with lids, 2 1-ounce amber dropper bottles, and 2 2-ounce amber dropper bottles, a small glass measuring pitcher, muslin or cheesecloth, a small fine mesh strainer, a small funnel that fits into your amber bottles, a medium glass mixing bowl, and some natural wax paper. Okay, so now that you have your supplies ready, let's make a fresh herb tincture using cilantro. The first thing you're going to do is chop your cilantro with a knife, chopping them pretty fine to release the moisture in surface area. Surface area is why you chop herbs. The more surface area, the better your extraction. You can also use a food processor on the pulse setting for this. It's up to you. I find cutting my herbs very therapeutic. Now take your sterile half-pint jar and fill it 3/4 of the way with cilantro. Fill it loosely and don't force them into the jar. If you were using fresh berries, barks, or plain roots, chop them really fine and fill the jar 1/3 or halfway full to allow for more expansion. Now it's time to pour the alcohol over the herbs, making sure you completely cover the plants. This will keep them from molding and being exposed to air. Pour your vodka or brandy over the top like this. Once you have finished this, take a chopstick or sterile spoon and just poke things around to distribute the alcohol and see if you need to add a little bit more to seal things up. Your lid needs to be airtight. Add your natural wax paper and put the lid on like so. Your herb should now be saturated and able to move around freely when shaken. Okay, so now it's time to add our label, and it should look like this, with the common name, the Latin name of the plant, the date, the percentage of alcohol, so in this case it would be 40% because the brandy is 80 proof. Now let's add the strength of the tincture, which is a 1:2, 1 part plant and 2 parts alcohol. I like to add the word folk so I know that the method was used to make it. Now put your tincture in a dark place for the next 4 to 5 weeks, shaking once every 5 days. Fast forward 5 weeks and we're ready to decant your tincture. Decanting is an herbalist term for processing your tincture when it's ready. Get all of your equipment ready for decanting before you open up your tincture. For proper decanting, you'll need your cheesecloth, amber bottles, strainer, Pyrex measuring pitcher, funnel, and a small and medium glass mixing bowl. When you're sure everything is clean and sanitized, take your measured pitcher and hold over your fine mesh strainer over the top like so. Pour your tincture through, leaving as much plant matter as you can inside the tincture jar. Now you're going to take a few pieces of cheesecloth and pour the wet plant material in the middle of the cheesecloth like this. Just rest your cheesecloth in a small glass bowl like this one while you're getting it ready. When you're ready, bring up the sides of the cheesecloth, twist a few times, and then squeeze it over the glass as much as you can. The goal is to squeeze all the menstruum from the marc. Marc is an herbalist term for the plant matter being used. You can also invest in an herb press. Herb presses are usually used when you are making many tinctures and in high volume. I have a handmade herb press and it works great. After you finish squeezing, strain your liquid again if any particulates are present. I use a fine mesh strainer for this purpose when I make small batch tinctures like this one. Okay, so now that we've finished that step, we're going to move on to pouring our finished tincture into the amber bottles. Get your funnel and put it in the top of your bottle and start pouring. Always leave room for the dropper. I fill my bottles just to where the curve starts at the top. This practice always leaves me plenty of room when I add the dropper top. When you're finished, cap everything tightly. Then wipe off the bottles with a towel and prepare your label. Here's what your label should look like. Make sure that you put a Latin name, common name, date, alcohol percentage, type of alcohol, dried or fresh herb, and the ratio. Again, I write Folk on it as a method of preparation. Done! We've finished our first fresh plant tincture. In our next video, we'll go over the basics of making a dried herb tincture. I like to make mostly fresh herb tinctures, but with certain herbs and parts of plants needed to be tinctured dry, it works well. Methods are always dependent on the individual plant. See you there.